one morning to go, like I said, to go to Odessa. I was already feeling bad because I was leaving this girl that I met. I was in Kharkiv for like 6 weeks, and I met this girl. I can't remember when, but we hung out quite a bit. Super cool, 22 years old. Super cool girl. She's in my videos on Kharkiv all over the place. But anyway, so feeling bad. Get on the plane in Kharkiv to go to Odessa. And you had to make a connection in Kyiv. Hello and welcome to Darren's Travels. On this channel, we talk about solo traveling around the world if you're a guy. Today, I'm going to be talking about a kind of like a review of my podcast, Solo Travel with Darren, episode number 61. And in that episode, I talked about a story that happened in Ukraine back in the summer of 2021. And it kind of goes to show you that when you travel, the best part about traveling, as they say, and I read this in a book somewhere, and I can't remember what the book was. I think I can't remember the name of it, but I'll put it in the card here. But anyways, in the book they say the best part about traveling is the memories. So after you come back and you're looking at your pictures and you're looking at your videos and all that, that's the best part. That'll make you the happiest when you're back. The second best part of your trip is the planning. After you've booked your flight, you've booked your hotel, all that, the anticipation before taking your trip is the second best part of travel. And then the third best part, or the worst part about traveling, ironically, is when you're actually there in the place of your vacation. Because again, when you're remembering your vacation, you forget about all the mishaps and you forget about all the things that went wrong when you were on the ground during your vacation and when you're in the other country. And that's kind of what happened today, and that's what I talked about in that podcast episode number 61. In that podcast episode, I talked about my trip from Kharkiv, Ukraine to Odessa. And I remember I was leaving Kharkiv one morning to go, like I said, to go to Odessa. I was already feeling bad because I was leaving this girl that I met. I was in Kharkiv for like 6 weeks. And I met this girl, I can't remember when, but we hung out quite a bit. Super cool, 22 years old. Super cool girl. She's in my videos on Kharkiv all over the place. But anyway, so feeling bad. Get on the plane in Kharkiv to go to Odessa, and you had to make a connection in Kyiv and then go to Odessa. And so I get on the plane, and the plane is an hour on the ground. It was an hour delayed on the ground in Kharkiv. So we finally get going. We get to Kyiv. And again, I'm late, so I know that I'm late. So I get out. I'm in the Kyiv airport. This again, 2021. I'm in the Kyiv airport, and I'm running around because I have maybe 10 minutes to get to my connecting flight to Odessa. And I remember I was on the I was on the wrong floor, and I think I was on like the international floor. And maybe for like a second, I thought that I was flying internationally because, obviously I'm foreign, I'm American or whatever. And so I'm used to being in the international terminals for, these airports around the world. But anyways, so after like 10 seconds or whatever, I figured out that I'm flying domestic because I was going to Odessa, which is a city in Ukraine. So I had to get back up to the domestic terminal. And as I was going in, I was running. I was in a hurry because I knew my flight was about to leave. I could see it on the board, and I think they were boarding, as I was doing all this. And so I just kind of knew that I was going to miss my flight. Because as you know, or if you don't know, in the U.S., you have to be boarded on international flights for flights, at least 15 minutes before the flight takes off. And they'll close the doors 15 minutes before the flight is scheduled to leave. So you know that when the flight leaves is not the real time, basically, that you have to be boarded. Nevertheless, so I knew that I was going to be late, and I just kind of figured out, okay, I'll just get another flight. I'm sure there's another flight to Odessa. So I'm running up to the counter for the airline that I was flying out for my connection, and I hear my name being announced on the intercom thing or whatever, and it's all in Russian. And they're talking about the flights and talking about stuff in Russian, and I hear my name though in English. So I get to the counter and I tell them, I was like, that's my name. They're announcing, that's me who they're announcing up on the speaker. I give my passport and everything, and they're like, okay. They're like, oh, come with me. We're waiting for you. And I was like, what do you mean you're waiting for me? And so the airline girl, the counter girl, takes me around into this room, and it was where they were doing security for the flight before, but there was nobody in there now because the flight was already about to leave. So there's this big room with security, the machines, whatever. A couple guys come in, they run my bag through the machines. They take me to, everything's fine. The counter girl comes around, takes me down these steps through this little security area. I get outside, and when you're overseas, and maybe here too, if you're at like a little airport or whatever, you know how you go downstairs and you have to go outside and get on one of those big people mover buses, whatever, and then they take you out to the plane. That's what was happening here, and that's what happens in a lot of smaller airports, I guess. But anyway, so the counter lady takes me down. We're standing outside waiting for what I thought was like the people mover bus, whatever. And I couldn't believe that they were doing this. I mean, the plane is literally waiting for me to take off, just me. And so these guys come up in a construction truck, and it's like literally a construction truck. And they roll down the window. They say something to the counter girl in Russian, and she tells me to get in with these guys. And so I literally get in this construction truck at the airport in Kyiv. They drive me. It seemed like about 5 miles, doing about 70 miles per hour through the airport, and they end up at this plane, the plane that was waiting to go to Odessa. It was the same flight. They had been waiting. They were holding the plane for 30 minutes, at least 30 minutes, maybe more. And so the stairs are still down. It's one of those like propeller planes or whatever, and the stairs are still down at the back. And there's a guy, the stewardess guy or whatever, standing at the top of the stairs. And when the construction guy stops and I get out with my bag, the stewardess guy's like telling me, he's like, come up, whatever, come up the stairs. So I'm running, I'm hurrying, whatever. I'm running up the stairs. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that they held this plane this whole time for me or whatever. So I get on the plane, and I'm walking down like the aisle, whatever, to my seat, and I was so embarrassed. I mean, it was the plane was hot. They've been sitting there for 30 minutes. All these Ukrainians were waiting for me. I felt so embarrassed, and I think there was like no place to put my bag overhead. It was all full. So I think they took it to the back somewhere, whatever. And then so I'm walking down the aisle to find my seat, and sure enough, the open seat is next to a very, very good-looking Ukrainian girl. And so I sit down, and I'm still kind of discombobulated or whatever. I've been running around. I'm sweating. It just, everything's like so like a whirlwind, so crazy. And so after I kind of got situated or whatever, I said hi to the girl next to me, obviously. And she just wasn't having it at all. She said hi like under her breath or something, but she was not happy at all. I mean, one, because she'd probably been waiting, she was sitting on that hot plane waiting for me. And two, I took the open seat that she was going to have for her flight to Odessa. So anyways, she was not in a good mood. She was not happy with me at all. So then I left, well enough alone. And then I think I said something else to her maybe 15 minutes after like the plane took off or something. And I said something else to her, just kind of like testing for, interest. Like I always say when you're talking to girls, you just want to kind of test and see how they react. And so, especially when you're on a flight, because you're a captive audience for all those hours. But anyway, so I said something, and again, she completely shut it down. She completely ignored me. And then, so I put my headphones on. I was just kind of like, all right, fine, and we're flying around. And then about 45 minutes later, as we're halfway to Odessa, I think they came around with food or water or something, and like I handed it to her, and I said something about maybe the food or whatever, like the snack or whatever. And then she said something about, I think I asked her that if she spoke English. And she did, and it was pretty good English too. And then she said, I forgot where, she asked me like where I was from or whatever. And I told her I was from Arizona, from the west coast of the United States. And I think I said something about LA, and I told her I lived in LA. I went to law school out there. And I said I lived in LA for 3 years. And then the minute I said I lived in LA, she became friendly. She was asking me about LA. She was asking me about Sunset Boulevard, Santa Monica, Hollywood, La Cienega, all the places in LA that, where you can go. She was talking about her girlfriends were there. But anyway, so that kind of like opened her up, and she was like all nice and like chatty. And I mean, so I talked to her like for the rest of the flight there. I asked her like what she was doing, and I think she was from another city in Ukraine, and she was going to Odessa for a wedding. And I kid you not, we exchanged Instagram, and she told me about this wedding, and she said if I wanted to go to the wedding to message her, and I would, I could meet her down there in Odessa, whatever. She'd tell me where it was at and all that. And so we land, and we said our goodbyes, whatever. And for whatever reason, I didn't message her, and I didn't go to this wedding. And I mean, probably the biggest mistake of my life. And I'll show you a picture of this wedding if I remember. But it's like, I can't remember why I didn't, but as I sit here now, I just cannot believe I didn't. It's kind of like, whose side am I on, right? But I didn't go, and we stayed in touch for a couple times. I think I messaged her when I was in Odessa to try to get her out, but she didn't respond, I don't think, if I remember correctly. But I never took her out. But it just goes to show, kind of like when you're traveling, stuff happens and you kind of like just roll with the punches, whatever. But it was like what started off so bad ended up good, because like I said, I met this beautiful Ukrainian girl or whatever, and got invited to this like fantastic wedding. But like I said, I didn't go. But anyway, so that was kind of like the story. And then I spent I think 5 days in Odessa. Odessa was good enough. I have a couple videos on here about Odessa. But again, that was 3 years ago. This was 2021, about 6 months before the war. And so that was my trip to Odessa. If you have any, again, if you find any value out of that story, again, I guess it's kind of like there's a saying that your vacation doesn't start until something goes wrong, and that's kind of like that, I guess. Or you kind of have to just roll with the punches. So just if you're taking your first trip overseas by yourself and something goes wrong, it's not personal. It's not just to you. I mean, it happens to everybody, and that's part of traveling. You kind of learn how to deal with it, and that's what makes you better as a traveler, especially as a solo traveler, is that you know how you can get out of situations, or you can deal with whatever comes up. It makes you more flexible or anti-fragile or whatever. And that's kind of what happened here. But anyways, I hope you found that helpful. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll try to put another video. Probably I'll put a video about Odessa up in the card, whatever, because Odessa was cool. I had a great time there. A lot of scams there. I'll talk about that once before, but it's kind of an interesting place. But anyways, thanks for watching. Take care.